It's a battle for the state and a battle of faith. We preview the Holy War next on the Gridiron Expert.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, bringing you some of the best college football news, predictions, and analysis. And before we begin, if you haven't already, go check out all the links in our description below, where you can go follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Gridiron Expert. Visit our official website, thegridironexpert.com, where you can sign up for our weekly newsletter and also sign up for our expert picks, where for just $30 you will receive every single one of our 2019 college football spread picks. And our first spread picks have actually already been released. They were released today. They are now on our website. And if you haven't signed up, you still have plenty of time. You can sign up at any point this season and still receive the full benefit of our expert picks. And you also don't want to miss out on our ESPN College Pick'em group, where you can become an expert by beating the expert. So don't miss out on any of the fun and any of the opportunities we have for you guys. Make sure you check out all the links in the description below. It's one of the more underrated rivalries in all of college football, the Holy War between Utah and BYU. The Utes and the Cougars will be going at it this Thursday night in the 100th meeting of the Holy War. And in the recent meetings, we have had some instant classics. The past 8 meetings have been decided by an average of just 9.6 points per game. The past 7 meetings, 7 of the past 8, have all been decided by just 1 possession. And the past 6 meetings have been decided by just 5.3 points per game. So some instant classics between the Utes and the Cougars, and I'm sure we are in for another one this Thursday night as the 14th ranked Utah Utes travel to Provo to take on their interstate rival. Utah leads this series 61-34-4. So a very lopsided rivalry here, with Utah dominating the majority of it. These two teams, of course, being in the same conference from 1922 all the way up until 2010. So plenty of meetings during that time. Most of the time, that was what decided the conference and decided that division. So a big-time rivalry game. These two teams once again going at it. We mentioned the classic games that we've had in years past, but unfortunately for BYU, they weren't able to win any of those. The Cougars have not beaten Utah since 2009. The Utes are on an 8-game winning streak against the Cougars, and a trendy upset pick to not only win the Pac-12, but to potentially make the college football playoff. They need a win in Week 1 over their rivals to keep those hopes alive and to show that they are a legitimate contender both in the Pac-12 and also on the national stage. We're going to kick things off with BYU here. We're going to analyze them, then go over to Utah, and then share our keys for the game and who we have winning this game, although I'm sure many of you already know if you have seen our BYU football predictions and our Utah predictions that we both did in the summer. But last year, BYU should have ended their losing streak to the Utes. They were up 27-7 over Utah, a team that did not have their quarterback in Tyler Huntley or their star running back in Zach Moss. But Utah, with Jason Shelley at quarterback and Armand Shine at running back, came back down 27-7 with just 40 seconds left in the third quarter and ended up beating the Cougars 35-27 to complete the biggest comeback in Holy War history. So you know, not only is it just a bitter rivalry anytime you want to beat your rival, but there's more to this game now. BYU looking to avenge that heartbreaking loss last year, looking to snap that 8-game losing streak to the Utes. Can they do it? Well, we'll say this. BYU is one of the more inconsistent teams in the entire nation last year, going just 7-6 in Kalani Sitake's third year in Provo. They went on the road and pulled off one of the biggest upsets of the year on the road against Wisconsin. But after that, they went just 4-5. Yes, they annihilated Western Michigan in their bowl game behind a perfect performance from their quarterback, Zach Wilson. But can BYU be more consistent in 2019, especially being the only team in the entire nation to open the season with 4 straight Power 5 opponents? The key for BYU, not only in this game against Utah, but also over the course of the entire season, is their quarterback, Zach Wilson, who started the last 7 games last year for the Cougars to become BYU's youngest ever starting quarterback. He's just a sophomore entering 2019, but in those 7 games, including the bowl game, he threw for over 1,500 yards, 12 touchdowns, and just 3 interceptions. So not only can he beat you through the air, but he also has some talent on the ground as well. BYU has to be able to utilize him, a guy that I think Wilson will take a major step forward in year 2 this year as a full-time starter, not having to come in the middle of the season. And I think he will certainly give this Utah defense a fight and a test, especially early on in this game. Luckily for Wilson, he returns his top 3 wide receivers from last year, including his tight end, Matt Bushman, but also Aliva Hifo and Talon Shumway. So a huge boost to this offense for BYU, who can never really keep their quarterbacks healthy. Obviously, Tanner Mangum was unable to do that last year, and that's why Zach Wilson was able to come in and take over the starting job. They return 4 offensive linemen, which should hopefully give him some more protection, but he is going up against one of the best defensive lines and secondaries in the nation with Utah. Defensively, BYU only allowed 21.4 points per game last year, which is not a bad number. This BYU team probably should have been better than their 7-6 record was last year. They probably should have won some more games and not been as inconsistent. But nonetheless, they were unable to do that. Not too bad of a numbers, but they do lose their top 2 tacklers from last season. On the bright side, though, when you're looking at their projected starters, all but 2 of their projected starters are upperclassmen, so either juniors or seniors. So plenty of experience on this side of the ball for the Cougars, who return 8 starters defensively, along with 9 starters on the offensive side of the ball. One of the biggest keys in this game is going to be stopping Zach Moss over as running back for Utah. BYU only allowed 130 rushing yards per game last year, which was just 3.7 yards per carry. Zach Moss, before he went down with an injury last year against Arizona State, was averaging 6.1 yards per carry and already had over 1,000 yards with about 3 games left to go. So it's going to be a very interesting battle to see how BYU's defense can bottle up Zach Moss and maybe make Tyler Huntley win this game through the air. Kalani Sitake enters his 4th season in Provo, sitting at just 20-19, going 9-4 in his first year, 4-9 in his second year, 7-6 last year. If he loses this game to Utah, he's going to be right at 500, 20-20, with a bunch of big games ahead of him, games against Tennessee, USC, and Washington. A poor start, especially another loss to Utah, a team he has not beaten since he arrived in Provo, could put him on the hot seat as 2019 continues to go through this college football season, as we continue to move through the 2019 season. Moving over to Utah, we kind of broke down the Cougars here, now we're going to break down the Utes. This is a team that I am very high on, as many people are. I believe it was Lee Corso who has Utah going all the way to the college football playoff, and I'm not going to go that far yet. They still have to get past Oregon. They would still have to get past Washington, but I do think this is by far one of the best teams in the entire Pac-12, and we have them winning the Pac-12 championship game. We have them going and facing off against Washington, beating the Huskies, and making a Rose Bowl appearance against Nebraska. Offensively for Utah, the number 14 team in the country coming into this game, is going to be a matter of, will Tyler Huntley and Zach Moss return to form after both going down with an injury in that upset loss at Arizona State last year? And I think that they will. Tyler Huntley proved himself as a passer last year, has proved himself as a passer during his entire career with the Utes, but he's also a dangerous dual-threat quarterback. And so you have 2 very capable and very experienced dual-threat quarterbacks going up in this game with Wilson at BYU and Huntley with Utah. Zach Moss, though, was rated as the best returning running back in the entire nation this season. As we mentioned, he rushed for 1,096 yards and 11 touchdowns and averaged 6 yards, a little over 6 yards per carry last year before going down with an injury in that Arizona State game. He is, once again, they rated him as one of the best running backs returning in the nation, and I'm going to reiterate that I believe that as well. He might not be as flashy and as speedy as some of the guys that you may have seen, Travis Etienne, Najee Harris at Alabama, Eno Benjamin even at Arizona State, but he's the most complete running back in the entire nation, and I believe he's going to be the workhorse for the Utes in 2019, assuming he can return to form. Coming back from injuries is much more difficult than I think people give it credit for. Luckily for Zach Moss, he's not going to have to do all of this alone. Tyler Huntley returns practically all of his wide receivers from 2018. Britton Covey, Jalen Dixon, Damari Simpkins, everybody's back for the Utah in this wide receiver core. So we all talk about Utah's defense, which usually thrives under Kyle Whittingham. This offense could be one of the best that he's had in a very, very long time. The only question that Utah has offensively is on the offensive line. They only return 2 starters and will be starting 2 redshirt freshmen this year. So BYU could be able to exploit some weaknesses in this offensive line and pressure Tyler Huntley. And if they can do that early and often, BYU could be on their way to snapping that 8-game losing streak and pulling off an upset win to kick off 2019. Defensively for Utah, as we mentioned, they have one of the best defensive lines and one of the best secondaries, not just in the Pac-12, but in the entire country. They lost their top 4 tacklers, but last year they only allowed 19.4 points per game and allowed just 316 yards per game. That was good for the 15th best mark in the entire FBS. So let that sink in for a little bit there. Continuing to do a great job with the Utes is what Kyle Whittingham is continuing to do. Maxis Tupai, Likai Fotu, and Bradley Ane lead this defensive line for Utah. Once again, one of the best in the entire nation, allowing just 100 rushing yards per game last year. So they are probably going to see a lot more passing attack from Zach Wilson in this game, because I do not see BYU having much success on the ground against this defense from Utah. Julian Blackman and Jalen Johnson both return in the secondary. Johnson leading the team last year with 4 interceptions, a team high last year in the secondary. So once again, across the board, this Utah defense is going to be extremely tough for any team to go up against. Can BYU, who really, the talent-wise for Utah, has never been an issue for BYU, can they come through and pull off this upset? Utah, like I just said, owns the edge across the board. On paper, looking at it, across the board, Utah owns the edge. They own the edge at in my opinion, every single position group. All the wide receivers are back. They certainly own the edge at running back. They own the edge at quarterback. Huntley, plenty of experience. Defensively, without a doubt, own the defensive edge. Yes, BYU might return more starters, but Utah's got the talent edge. But like I said again, that has never mattered for BYU in the Holy War, giving Utah such great fights over the past 8 seasons. Only one decided by more than just 2 possessions. The key for BYU, if they want to come through and pull off this upset and snap that losing streak to Utah, is to, as I mentioned, exploit that offensive line that was probably the weakest point on this entire Utah team. 2 returning starters, 2 redshirt freshmen, not many career starts coming back for Utah. Exploit the offensive line, shut down Zach Moss, force Tyler Huntley to win this game through the air. Make them one-dimensional. Make them know, make the Utah offense know that we have to pass to win this game. And if they have to do that, BYU's defense will be able to hone in on the pass and maybe be able to win this game. If they can make them one-dimensional and they know what Utah's going to do, they have a very, very solid chance to win this game. But that's all they got to do. If Tyler Huntley and Zach Moss continue to go off, continue to have a great bounce-back game, coming back from their injury, and they're both pretty much 2-dimensional. You've got both a potent passing attack and a potent rushing attack. It's going to be, I think, a long night for BYU. The key for Utah against BYU is to keep Zach Wilson in the pocket. This guy has the ability to get out of the pocket and make plays with his legs. Maybe he's able to extend plays and find an open receiver at the last second, or maybe he's going to take off and run for 20 or 30 yards on a scramble. That's how good this kid is, and keep in mind he's only a sophomore. So make them one-dimensional, keep him in the pocket, make sure he has to force him to throw, because I don't have a lot of faith in BYU's rushing game, especially against this stout Utah defensive line. But the biggest key for Utah outside of that is to start fast. They cannot afford a slow start in this game against BYU. They got down 27-7 last year. That's not going to fly in 2019. Not on the road at Provo, not with a much improved BYU team. If they get off to a slow start on the road, I get it's an interstate rivalry game. There are going to be plenty of Utes fans there. It's maybe as many as there are Cougar fans there. But nonetheless, if they get off to a slow start, I don't see Utah making as big of a comeback like they did last season when they were hosting the Cougars. So that is the key for Utah, and I do believe that's exactly what's going to happen. We have Utah winning this game, and once again, in a very close one. The past 7 of the past 8 meetings have been decided by 1 possession, make it 8 of the past 9 after this 2019 meeting that we will have on Thursday night. But Utah escapes with a win in Provo, extends their winning streak to 9 over BYU, and they're going to have a rough start to the season while Utah is hoping to clinch a Pac-12 title and maybe be a college football playoff dark horse. So guys, thank you for watching us here on YouTube. Go check us out on Twitter and Instagram at Gridiron Expert. And of course, go check out our official website, thegridironexpert.com, where you can sign up for our weekly newsletter and sign up for our expert picks. The first picks were just released today, so make sure you're not missing out on those. It's just $30 for the entire season. I can promise you it's a deal you do not want to pass up. And of course, sign up for our ESPN College Pick'em group where you can become an expert by beating the expert. Don't miss out on any of the fun and any of the opportunities we have for you guys. Everything has links in the description below. And once again, thank you for watching us here on YouTube. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe. And we will see you next time on The Gridiron Expert.